Entrepreneur and athlete, three-time All-League defensive back for Bakersfield Ridgeview High School. Played for the Jets until a recent incident occurred. And welcome, Bryson. Thank you for being on my platform and thank you for accepting the invitation.
Thank you, thank you. It's an honor to be here. Good morning. I'm happy to talk to you about any topic, any subject. Ready to get into it. Having a
Well,
good
Bryson,
day.
yeah, well, I appreciate this, Bryson. Well, the reason I invited you to this platform is because you're an athlete and a professional athlete, and there's millions of kids that around the world that aspire to be much like yourself, and sometimes people aren't as fortunate in putting in the work. But there's a lot of things society and individuals don't see about professional athletes, and that's the side of struggle, mental struggles, mental health issues, and
Yeah.
the media doesn't really do it justice. And so I decided to invite someone much like yourself to explain some of the struggles and just to talk about them. I don't expect you to have any answers to these. I just want to talk about them so people are aware of it, because I feel
Yes.
a lot of times people they see athletes more in a physical light and they don't tend to see them in a mental light. So
Definitely.
well, before we get into that topic, do you mind telling the audience about yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, um, I was had time as a professional athlete. Um, I am an entrepreneur. I'm also a professional model with Wilhelmina NYC currently. Um, I'm from Bakersfield, California. I'm 25 years old. I'm also a father. Um, I have a lot of, different hobbies and stuff. Sports, was one of them growing up. I have a deep, deep love for psychology. I have my bachelor's degree in psychology and sociology. So this interview is a special one for me. With you and on in the Psych Life page. I've followed the Psych Life page before I knew that you followed me, like, as a player or anything, because I didn't know, I just didn't know, but I was interested in psychology. Psych Life page, I followed it, along with other psychology pages, that are pretty well known. So um, I'm I'm just happy to do this interview and give you my perspective, and try to give you as much clarity as I can from my perspective, and try to explain myself the best way that I can.
Awesome, Bryson. Thanks for that, dude. And I didn't know you were a father. Congratulations with that.
Thank you.
Um, hopefully one day I can be honored with the same gift. So,
Yes.
you said you study psychology. What attracted you to to the field?
Okay. It started honestly as a kid. So I didn't know, you know, clear cut until I was in about my second, third year of college. Hey, I really like psychology and sociology, but as a youth, it came natural to me. I'm a middle child. I have three brothers, two sisters, big family, big extended family, a lot of different characters, and the side of my family I was closest to was my mother's side, and there's much more women on that side. So, and me, I was a very shy kid, very quiet, and I'm a middle child. So all I did was observe. All I did was look. All I did was take things in. All I did was think, like, and think hard, and a lot of times overthink. And I would see a lot of, the women on my mother's side, my cousins, aunts, grandmother, great grandmother, and I would always listen and take in their energy and the good and bad energy and the problems that they would have. A lot of them sometimes, would go through issues and it would put a big mental strain on them. Some of them to the point where they felt that they needed to take, certain, medications and were prescribed, and, from the most critical things to the most minor things in my own personal life and family I experienced. So, it was normal to me, and just seeing it, and I had just a natural intrigue to know who, what, when, where, and why. I wanted to understand it. And so when I got to college, I became like that with everything, with sports, with just everyday life. I did my own personal studying on women and psychology of relationships, and I would always read articles, Psychology Today, and I would, call, psychologists who would just talk to me on the phone and just ask them a million questions. I was really, enveloped in, this subject, and um, I really loved it. So when I was in college, I was already taking sociology and psychology, so I, decided to take it all the way.
Awesome, dude. And thank you for sharing that, bro. It sounds like much of the population, you're very attracted to the mysteriousness of the field and human behavior and
Yes.
cognition, and that's awesome, dude. Um, so I would like to shift this a little bit. You as a professional athlete, you go through practices, sometimes two a days, nutrition regimens that you have to follow, making sure you're taking your vitamins, making sure you're hydrated, and those are all physical components, right? But no
Mhm.
one ever talks about the mental side of being an athlete. What are
Yeah.
some of the things that go into preparing for a game or going into a week and thinking about that game? What are some of the things that happen in your mind? How do you prepare for it? What motivates you? What gets you going?
Okay. Yeah. Well, first things first, everybody, because everybody's a different individual and everybody has their own niche or their own way that they go about things that's most comfortable for them. Um, so everybody has their own system. But generally, besides the general preparation of watching film and taking notes, the higher end levels you go, um, you kind of, you know, you want to have positive affirmation in your mind when you think about some strategies and plays that you're going to try to execute. You want to think about them going the right ways in your head. You want to manifest that, and I would usually do that. And then right up, leading up into the game, obviously the physical preparation goes down, the mental preparation goes up. Like, the practices on Fridays before a game, you know, it'll be no pads on or nothing like that. It'll be no contact. It'll just be really a light, jog or sprint through, a quick practice. It's mostly mental. It's everybody. You want everybody to be in the right place at the right time as a play formulates. And then leading up to the game, of course, you want to get your rest and do your proper nutrition and all that to the best of your abilities. Stay hydrated, but you start thinking about it more and more. What you're gonna wear when you come out, how your stance, really anything. The more you think about it, and the closer you get to the game, the more you think about it, and it can be good, to think about it more. Some people, right before the game, like music, a certain type of music, hardcore, loud, heavy beats music. Some people like softer music. Some people listen to whatever. Some people will watch comedy. Me sometimes I'd listen to just random stuff. I never had a specific. I never was like I'm gonna limit myself to this type of music because it was just how I was feeling that day. I wasn't feeling like listening to that, so I could be listening to Keith Sweat before the game. You know what I mean? Or it's just
Well,
random. It's
well,
random.
bro, thank you so much, Bryson. You said you visualize what you're gonna do before the game. That's a big thing. And that's one of the things that psychologists talk about. That when you visualize, it's almost just as good as practicing in the physical. So I
Oh yeah.
appreciate you sharing that for the audience to know. I also wrote down you have a positive affirmation. Can you give me an example of one?
Yeah, yeah. A positive affirmation that you have is like, okay, I'm going up against a really good receiver this week, and in their scheme, he runs a lot of fades, so he runs a lot of streaks. So I visualize in my head being in the right position while he's in the process of his route down the field in that streak, and me when the ball's coming, I see his eyes light up. I look back and make a play on the ball instead of panicking, grabbing, and getting a pass interference. So it's like that. I'm gonna play it. This how the play is gonna go smooth. It's gonna go in my favor. So then when it's in that moment, I've thought about it so much, it kind of made me less scared to go ahead and do it. You know what I'm saying? Why fear now? I've went through this so many times in my head. Go ahead and do it. Now, it's a little bit easier to just, get it done. So that's an example right there. And people should really realize, especially football, because football has a lot of people on the field, and it's very strategic, and the culture of the game and how it was created is very military-esque. So, military is a lot of strategy, a lot of teamwork. That's the way football is at its core. It's a lot of teamwork. It's a lot of strategy. It's a lot of, depending on somebody else. It's different than basketball. You can have, four players, maybe be people from the crowd, and you put LeBron with them. They can do something. You know what I'm saying? You can't take 10 people from the crowd and then Tom Brady. Who's going to block for him? You know what I'm saying? Are they going to be good enough to do this and that? And football's, a very strategic sport, and it's a lot of variables in that sport, and it's very cerebral, very cerebral.
And dude, that it sounds really intense. And when you talk about positive affirmations and visualizations, it seems like you got it down packed. With you being in the circumstances that you are right now, you were in the league, you were witnessing individuals how they prepared for a game. And something a lot of people don't talk about is how the media affects the players. And sometimes you just went very thorough into how much mental focus goes into a game and how you have to visualize and use positive affirmations. Does the media ever affect a person's mental health within the team or a player? Have you witnessed that where maybe a media member, whether it be the news or Sports Center or whatever it's from, or a random source says something and it gets a player very upset that it gets him out their game?
Yeah. You definitely can never discount that variable because everybody at the end of the day is human. So you can't take out the factor of human nature. Human nature, whatever job, whatever this, if somebody's saying negative stuff, you might just think about it. You might just think about it when you're about to, do whatever act they were talking about. So especially on the platform of being a professional athlete, and it's on Twitter or it's on TV or it's on this article or that article and about one player and then this and that, he doesn't have to admit it. He can block it out. Some say they block it out and they can't block it out. Some can block it out and they actually can block it out. Some just don't care. It's probably best if you just, don't really care what they say and focus on you. But there's going to be people around you who might bring it up. Friends from back home just send it to you. There's a lot of variables, and it does affect, some athletes, some, not all, and you will never know, and unless they admitted it, they can hide it, or they can say it doesn't affect them, but they might tell somebody else, their best friend, in confidence that it made them mad. So yeah, just being human, it can affect you.
I don't like Michael Phelps is a perfect example of that. He was someone who had a lot of success in the Olympics. The world saw him live. They saw him do what he did in the Olympics. I think it was like 9 gold medals one year, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, he got in trouble. I think they caught him at a party smoking some pot, and followed by he went rogue for a little bit. The media started coming after him. He lost his endorsements, and he went through a severe depression and anxiety. He came out and he said that. Um, he says that the media, even though they portrayed him in the beginning as this big thing, that he was the next hero pretty much, all of a sudden that same media dropped him down and it put him into a state of anxiety and depression. What are your thoughts on that? How sometimes the media will put an individual on a team or on a big platform such as yourself, Bryson, really such as yourself, and then they'll tear them down and they'll come after them and they have no consideration for their mental health. What do you think about that? Or what your
Okay.
thoughts?
What I think about that is,
No right or wrong
it's
answer.
it's pretty obvious to see that, the general population and, fans and stuff, you really because any type of entertainment, sports or any type of entertainment, it's entertainment, right? It was always entertainment for me before I was even ever there. It was entertainment. So with that being said, stuff going good is great entertainment and stuff going bad is great entertainment. So people and fans usually have they have a love-hate relationship with people in those positions. Not that you really love them or you really hate them. You love the entertainment, but it's like it grabs you in for something to go really bad with them and to roll with that, and something to go good and roll with that. So if you notice with a lot of, not just him and other high profile athletes, there have been times where when they were on their on their way up in terms
Yeah.
of notoriety, and they were transcending and going up, ascending. Um, and then something happened, and negativity made it look like stuff was going the opposite way for them. The momentum is just as strong, if not stronger. You know what I'm saying? When think about just examples. Johnny Manziel, when he was coming out of college,
That's another great example, man. Thank you for mentioning him.
he was very liked, his personality, all the same things that people, years later say that they kind of don't want him back in the league to sign him for, was some of the things that people twisting their mind in a positive light.
Yeah.
Oh, he just kind of takes the bull by the horns, blah, blah, blah. Oh, everybody says he's great. Well, you just go with general public. Yeah, he's great too. It's easy to, not look at it subjectively as an individual, especially if you're a fan. And then stuff happened. He was with other celebrities and stuff like that. And then stuff happened, and you see other celebrities run around him in pictures anymore. Other rappers wasn't around him. Celebrities weren't around him anymore. Then he wasn't playing well. So then they were talking about, he didn't play good. Then the same stuff they liked with him out of college, he can make moves with his feet and on the go, take something out of nothing. Then it looked like he played erratic in the NFL. It was always erratic, you know what I'm saying? But you looked at it erratic this way. Oh, he can make good out of a bad situation. When he was on a higher level and it wasn't working out for him the same way, you said he sucked.
They got the same. It sounds like they got the same facts that they knew, and they formed a different conclusion from it. And I don't want to talk about whether it's fair or not, because we have no control whether it's fair or not. But there's definitely a factor, and it's interesting. I would like to see the research on how much the media has a correlation with athletes' mental health. And I'd really like to see that correlation. And when we talk about athletes like Michael Phelps and Johnny Manziel, they're the perfect example. Can you relate to that in any way in your profession so far as a professional athlete? Can you relate to that in any way, or you haven't had the media either put you up in that spotlight or put you down so far in between?
In my personal experience with that subject, wasn't so much in when I was in the professional ranks. It was before that, amateur. It was college. It was high school. And me, I was a very under recruited athlete. I was a 2-star, based on rankings out of high school, which, I thought unfairly. I was just in an area where they weren't recruiting heavily, and I was at a school that didn't have politics. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff, like I said, in football, especially, there's so many variables, and it can start from so far before they even get to the professional ranks. Like, when you tell a kid, this is a little bit off to the side, but when you tell a kid,
it's not off to the side, because I think now you're talking about experiences a person has when they're younger that all of a sudden translate to being older, such as trauma. But I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. I didn't mean to.
So let me talk about me personally. So my thing with the media was more before the professional ranks. I wouldn't get the notoriety I felt like I deserved. I always looked and I studied, and I would always do research on the sport and what the level I wanted to get to. Those guys, what were they about? Was I similar to that? And I knew all the factors. I knew politically I wasn't at the right high school. I knew politically my coaches didn't have the most connections out of high school. I had no scholarships at the end of my senior year. People were coming to me like, "Oh, maybe you can play D2 or something." I didn't want to hear that. No disrespect to Division II football or nothing like that, but I wanted to go as high as I could go. I ended up making my own, highlight tape because I looked online and seen that colleges come to schools during the middle of the year and they look at your first 4 games highlight and then they might recruit you harder. So I made a 4-game highlight tape. It's still on YouTube. It's grainy. I made it, with somebody's old tape player my mom knew from church or something. And I put that disc in my coach's office. The University of Nevada ended up coming there, seeing the tapes, liked me, give me a scholarship like in January, into January. And then I got like a Washington State offer and then Montana State, some FCS schools. And that's how that happened. So then I get to college and a lot, then you see even more was political based on school, which you were ranked out of high school. They would, because the media wants to favor the guys who already have a story at that level.
Yes.
Want to favor the 5-star kid to be great because he's a 5-star kid. He's already, you know what I'm saying? He has some buildup. You know what I'm saying? So I would notice that. A lot of players don't even notice that. But I was just take everything in. I noticed that. Like, you obviously, you know what I'm saying? I noticed and I made my own opinion if I thought that guy was that great or not. And I looked at it practically. Is he doing really something different than what I'm doing? And if it was a no, it was a no. If it was a yes, you give him his credit. So, the media, even in those ranks, that's where I dealt with it. I didn't make all conference out of college when I was clearly one of the most NFL ready prospects in the Big Sky conference. I was at Montana State when I graduated in the Big Sky. I looked, you could tell it was obvious, but the media didn't give me All-American, All Big Sky, first team, second team, third team, honorable, anything. Zero. And I had a close friend of mine who lived with me. He died in 2015, and he was a highly recruited guy. He went to Texas, had some trouble there, went to Montana State, and he was a senior. I was a junior. His name was Aaron Barnett. And I remember at the end of my junior year, his senior year, he was mad. So what you mad for? He said, they didn't give me no all conference. They gave this dude at the other school all conference. I was like, don't even worry about that, honestly. Like, it's really just the media's picks. And
it's political.
They're not. You can easily go off statistics, but they're not going off the practicalities of football. When you really look at the practicalities of football, the best players and the most long tenured players make routine plays consistently. Routine plays. Think about that phrase, routine plays. Not the spectacular highlight, routine plays. So routine plays don't get you the best statistics. Routine plays don't get you the most flash. Yeah. Routine plays are actually what makes you a good professional in anything, though. Routine habits, So,
hey, I appreciate all this so much, Bryson, and you have a lot of great information. And the World Health Organization shows that 1 in 5 people struggle with a mental health concern. Let's call it concern throughout their lifespan. And the reason why I mentioned that in specific is because I wonder, they never talk about athletes that are struggling with mental health issues. And when we talk about, you mentioned variables, and the media is a huge variable, which honestly, to me, it's one of the biggest ones. And you just talked about how politicized that is. And even for the players themselves, as a young kid in high school, you have to be worrying about whether you're going to be recruited, whether the coaches know enough people, who's the school associated with. And that sounds kind of rough, man, to be perfectly honest with you.
The mental stuff starts right there. The mental stuff starts right there. What is it? It's today's November 27th. When signing day comes around, there's going to be a lot of kids mentally feeling through the roof, and there's going to be a lot of kids mentally feeling like one of the worst days of their life. I promise you. I promise you. And sadly, a lot of sports from youth on up, it goes and it follows strongly politics. It doesn't follow, it's not as in-depth with, going the next level to figure out things as you think. They'll more let the politics take them and make decisions for them. And so the media drives the politics hard. So it goes hand in hand.
One last thing before I let you go. I don't know if you're okay with this. You don't have to answer, but can you talk about some of the entrepreneur side businesses that you have? And if you plan on continuing your career in the NFL?
Yeah, yeah. So, entrepreneurial businesses. First things first. Let's talk about what's coming up. Um, I'm gonna be opening. I'm gonna be partnered with my one of my mentors, business associates, for a bed and breakfast. It's in upstate New York, off Lake Ontario, and it'll be a bed and breakfast, but it'll also be listed, on sites where you can come stay and like Airbnb and stuff like that. But besides that, they're going to use it as their retreat for patients who have athletes and entertainers are their patients. They're patients who have addictions, and when they do a little getaway treatment with them. And before they use their personal cottage, and now we're going to be using a new one for that. So that's one that's coming up.
Oh,
Um,
that's very interesting. That's very interesting. That's very nice for you to partner up. Those that struggle with substance use, I work in that field, and it can be a struggle, especially with the higher end drugs. We're talking about heroin and meth. We're not just talking
exactly,
about the greens.
exactly. And then to go to the other side, the greens, which this is something that I know if I don't really promote it, publicly like that, because especially when I was signed with the Jets, because the NFL, you do
They have their
testing, and
laws.
then they look down on it, and you got to respect the rules. So I don't really promote this, publicly too much, but I don't really mind saying it now. Not being signed currently. Foreman Farms, Adelanto, California. I do have equity um, in that factory. So Foreman Farms is a commercial cannabis factory in Adelanto, California. It started up in about 2015, and that's another thing. Also in the financial district, this is food financial district, um, 77 Pearl Street in New York City. It's a small lunch spot. It's called Ruben's Empanadas. Ruben's Empanadas has been there for decades. It's probably been there before my parents and my parents' parents were there. I have old pictures of it from the early 1900s, dating back to when the first guy named Ruben started it. He came from it's Argentinian style empanadas, but he wasn't from Argentina. He was from a country over, and so he started that. So I currently recently just um, got in and took over as owner of Ruben's Empanadas.
Oh, congratulations.
I built relationships with um, people who work there, with long tenured people, and the opportunity arose, and I just went after it. I went after it, you know, and I do have a lot of. Besides that, I have a lot of close friends that I help out with their sites, their e-commerce sites. The P Spot is one. It's like exotic candles that people like to use, meditation and stuff like that. Different cultural candles, different religions and stuff like that. So it's like a little cool niche website. And so, yeah.
Bryson, man, I'm gonna tell everybody here. I mean, I don't know how many people watch this and go to New York, but when I go, I'm definitely gonna try Ruben Empanadas, man, on 77th and Pearl Street, right?
77 Pearl Street, man. My boy my boy Willie, he'll hook you up, man. He's in there all day, Monday through Friday. Willie would be the one, and he'll hook you up, man.
There's only one,
Willie.
Bryson. I appreciate this interview so much. There's only one more topic. I know we've gone past the time limit I had set, but if you're okay talking about this, um, I posted the other day if people thought marijuana was a gateway drug, and working in the field, a lot of my clients, since I work with adolescents, they're struggling with marijuana abuse, and it's not necessarily there's no physical addiction components involved that are drastic, just small stuff like you might lose your appetite once you stop smoking if you're a daily smoker and whatnot. But what's your belief with when I don't want to talk too much about the NFL when it comes to this. I don't want to get you in trouble.
Yeah.
But what's your belief as far as marijuana? Do you see it more as a recreational purpose, or do you see it should only be used medically? Or what's your opinion about it? I have personal opinions about it, and I'll let you know, which is I think it should be legalized
Uh-huh.
recreationally, and I think it should be monitored just like any other substance, because even as a therapist, a substance abuse therapist, um, when we incriminate those that are using drugs, which is what happens when they make it illegal, when we incriminate those that they're suffering with substance use, then we're making the matters worse for them. We're making them become all of a sudden within a prison system where they maybe don't belong when they really need help. And let's be honest, the United States has taken a while to shift perspectives as far as marijuana and other drugs, and as far as even
Okay.
just something as simple as treatment. So I
Yeah.
just want to see what your opinion was concerning it. Do you think it should be legalized,
Uh,
or kept for medical use?
okay. Um, so I I'm definitely not against it being legalized. Like I'm from California. I'm definitely not against it being legalized everywhere in the US. I'm definitely not against it. I mean, not just because um I have a financial interest in it, but um, just ethically and stuff like that. And what I also wanted to say is with marijuana, there's the general perception of it and what has been the perception of it, in years past. And then there's the practical reality of it. And in the practical reality of what marijuana is all about in the industry, from the highest of the highs to the lowest of the lows ends of it, there's a lot of variables that go into it, from the actual strain, from who's making it, what they put in it. There's a lot of variables. So with that, there can be a lot of myths untested or tested, or there's it can go a lot of ways with something, but um, it's easy to say a lot of things about marijuana, positively or negatively. So um, I think that's why it's so controversial. And then if you look at what is your and this is like a question from me to you. How do people generally treat cigarettes?
How do people? There's many ways. But for one of the most famous ones is the typical behind the counter. I'm gonna buy the gum and I'm gonna chew it, and that gum doesn't really always have the same effect as a cigarette. But one of the main ways people treat cigarettes, and me being remember, I'm a psychologist, is
Yeah.
behavioral orientation, behavioral
Uh-huh.
therapy. So a
Yeah.
lot of times there has to be consequences involved when stopping cigarette smoking. For
And
example, I have never treated anybody as of yet as a young clinician to stop cigarette smoking, or nicotine
exactly.
consumption, but I have for
Exactly.
marijuana consumption. Um,
Exactly.
but for adolescents, I would honestly regulate. I would build like some sort of behavioral modification plan with the parents to help the kid get rid of his smoking habit, because I typically
Mhm.
work with adolescents. That's
Exactly. I would recommend anybody to just look at the history of, especially in the United States, of how smoking was portrayed with advertisement and stuff from the beginning. What was it seen as? Was it seen as controversial? And was there a lot of pushback on it like marijuana? What, how is it being sold now? How is it, you hear things about like contents that are in cigarettes being put in Doritos and different chips from Frito-Lay, and they're trying to get people addicted, kids addicted to it, by tasting certain contents in chips, and then you get the same feeling with cigarettes. So marijuana is also there's a big cultural aspect to it. It's very obvious there's a big cultural aspect to it, you know, and with that cultural aspect comes certain perception. A lot of it can be negative.
well,
It's
Bryson, well, you know very well that the alcohol companies, they pay heavy, heavy money
Exactly.
to counter to counter marijuana. They how do they do it in the specifics? I don't know, but I've seen that they spend millions, and the owners of these big companies like Budweiser and Bud Light, they not only do they pay smaller beer companies that are coming up, but they put a lot of advertisement to go against marijuana. Also, the government itself, instead of providing treatment to these individuals, they want to send them to jail. They
Mhm.
because they get money off them being in jail. Yes, they spend money while being in prison, but the
Right.
cops are getting paid. They gave a ticket. There's lawyers are involved. There's more
Mhm.
people within the judicial system. So
They've
yeah,
been
man, I agree
they've
with
been
you
they've been
100%.
they've been
And
yeah. They benefit off of it being something negative, and it's just about their bottom line, money. So just think if they had any type of vested financial interest in marijuana, how they would put money forth towards to flip around the whole perception and what light it's shown in and how it's accepted. Another
well,
thing, media, like we talked about.
hey man,
Right.
Bryson, I appreciate this so much, man. I've kind of ran out of time here, and
No
I
problem.
just want to tell you thanks for coming on my platform. For everybody who already knows, anyways, this is Bryson Keeton, three-time league DB at Bakersfield Ridgeview, former Jets NFL cornerback, and an advocate for mental health awareness and an entrepreneur as well, as long as being an athlete. And I appreciate you so much, Bryson, and thank you for coming on my platform, man. Okay,
Thank you. Thank you. Anytime. Do this again.
thanks, man.